Okay, awesome. So I played a little switcheroo on you guys. You said I was going to come up here and talk about ransomware, but what I really want to do is talk to you about an investment opportunity. What if I told you I could return 1,400% of whatever money you gave me back to you? Anybody want in? You want in? Right? So the key to that is it's not a money market. It's not a one-year CD. It's not Amway. What it really is ransomware. I'm going to show you how I went on the dark web. I created a ransomware campaign for around $6,000 that would return 1,400% return on investment, and I didn't write a line of code. So let's get into it. First thing is I want to talk about this. This is what's involved in building a ransomware campaign. I have to have a payload. I have to have a way to deliver the payload. I have to have a way to get people to take that delivery method, and then I have to drive traffic. This is really similar to running a website, right? Like this is what we normally do. We use SEO and we attract customers and we get them to purchase things in shopping carts, right? So it's a really similar process. And amazingly, what I found on the dark web is these guys have made this an industry at every step along the way. You can purchase all the pieces. So let's dig into a couple of them. First thing is I needed a payload. So I need somehow to encrypt files to make you pay me, right? So what I did is I need to avoid trivial signature detection. I can't have the dumbest endpoint agent stop me. I can't have Microsoft's endpoint agent stop me, right? I wasn't so worried about advanced EDR. I just wanted to be able to capture low-hanging fruit pretty easily. So I needed a new hash of a crypto variant. I didn't even go after a brand new crypto. I just went after something that existed. I just wanted it to avoid that. And I wanted it to be identified as a good program by things that looked at hash support. So for this also date, by the way, when I paid for this. And yes, I did blow 10 Bitcoin on this. Right? So I went out and I bought this crypto locker right there. That's the ad that I actually used, that I actually clicked on and bought a version of crypto locker. The key is this one didn't contain support. And I'm going to get into a minute where I actually bought source code support for it so I could have it rehashed when it was detected and discovered. So initially now I have my actual encryptor that I purchased with a brand new hash, and I need to figure out now how do I get that payload onto other people's computers, because I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to actually run the campaign. I just want to sit back and reap the rewards while I live in the Cayman Islands. So what I did was I went out and looked for that. And what I found was that the criminal elements have set up networks that allow me to use their botnets or that promise me a certain amount of installs, a certain amount of compromised computers. I can target companies if I would like to. Those cost more, by the way. I could literally target your company, whoever you are. I can go on the dark web and say, I want to infect this company, ABC, with ransomware. And they will set you a price, and they do it. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about how they got it done. I don't have to worry about how they fished. It doesn't make any difference to me. I just deliver the ransomware and reap the rewards. In this case, I'm casting a broad net. And when we get to the end, I'll show you why. I didn't care who got it. I just want a certain number of infections. So these are actually ads right here from the dark web. These are real deal. These are the ones I used in order to push that payload out. But let's take a sidebar and say, how does this happen? How do we get an industry like this where I can buy components of a ransomware campaign from these skilled programmers in other countries? And so the first thing I want to do is dispel the idea that ransomware is a thing. It's a series of things. It's an industry, and I'm going to get into the industry in a minute. But how did it happen? This is how it happens. This is just a smattering of economics from Eastern Europe. This is what a skilled programmer in those countries makes per month. Now look at Ukraine. $200 a month, US, is what a skilled programmer in Ukraine makes. And those ads at the bottom are for programming ransomware. Notice the prices. They can make a lot more money working on a ransomware payload, which is not illegal, by the way. They didn't launch it. They didn't use it. They just made it. If they look at it like it's a weapon. If they make handguns and you choose to shoot somebody with it, that's your problem, not theirs. They just made a gun. They look at it as I made a tool. And what you did with it is your problem. So by disconnecting all the pieces as they've had, and we'll get back into some more of the pieces, spreading it and doing all this stuff, they have allowed themselves this sort of moral ambiguity, right? Now, all of a sudden, I'm the person who does the crypter. I'm the packer. I'm the loader. I don't know what you're spreading. It's not my problem. All I do is traffic acquisition. So it's given them this kind of opportunity now to detach themselves from the actual process and to hire programmers of increasingly better value who are, basically underpaid. If you look at that versus a Silicon Valley wage, like, that's nothing, right? So let's jump back now over to how did I get this infection to spread right there? So what I did was I was guaranteed $100 for 1,000 installs. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. So now I can just spread this malware around until it starts to get detected. As soon as somebody gets onto it with trivial detection, then I'll have to get it rehashed, start over again. But usually you get about 90 days before people really get on to what's going on. They'll block these sites and whatever, but the beauty of it is, I don't care if they block the IP it came from. I was guaranteed 1,000 installs. They'll just move to a different IP and install it from there, right? So how did we get traffic? Well, I don't know anything about SEO. I don't know if anybody in here even knows anything about SEO or what it is. I work in marketing, but I have people who tell me that it's important. You can actually buy SEO on the internet. You can actually push traffic through these different packers and through these different services. I didn't know what it really meant. Like what did how do I need that? But they actually offer phishing services. When I said I could target your company specifically, they will specifically target people via phishing, via botnet, via adware, via scareware, whatever it takes. It doesn't make any difference. They don't care, right? The key here is these are criminal gangs that are targeting you for money. And in this case, they were targeting you for my money. They just took what I paid them, and then they went on and infected a number of people. By the way, I didn't launch the campaign, just so you know. I just built it. I needed to prove that it could be done. So if I had launched that, I'd be in the Cayman Islands doing this presentation remotely. So let's take a look at the industry real quick. So what we really have is, at the bottom, we have this layer, which was me, non-technical opportunist, that was using crimeware as a service. I went out just like I would use software as a service across the industry. I was able to build this campaign. I didn't know anything about it. In fact, they guided me through how to build it. Here's the steps you're going to need. You're going to go to this board and this website. You're going to need to ask for this. They guided me through the whole process. They built this presentation for me, basically, to teach me how to do it. There's an entire industry under the covers doing this. In the middle, you have this middleware of resellers and maintainers, these are the folks who are actually selling it, just like real software. These are your VARs. There are crimeware VARs who are selling ransomware, who are selling ransomware SEO, who are selling phishing. It's pretty amazing to see this entire industry running. And then at the very, very top, you have just a few technical innovators who are really making it work. Now, if this seems familiar, it should, because all around the room and outside, there are, I don't know how many of us, there are 40 of us or whatever vendors that work in this model. Exactly. We just sell legitimate software on the other end. They have set up an industry that works and moves and acts exactly like real software. Like, it's incredible. This is what we're fighting. It's not about tactics and techniques and IOCs. We are fighting a criminal enterprise that is diverse, that spans countries, that spans languages, right? We are fighting an entire, what's the right word? Like it's organized crime on a global scale that spans countries and regions and nations. So it makes it very hard to fight. But let's get to the punchline. Maybe. There we go. So when I said I was guaranteed a number of hits and a number of traffic, here's the math. I was going to take 20,000 visitors at a 10% infection rate. It's pretty low, right? I'm counting on 10% of them actually picking up the payload. My payout rate I calculated at 0.5%, because that's what they told me on the dark web to expect, was only about 0.5% payout. Symantec says it's 3%. And so if I'd gotten that, I might have run the campaign and retired, but I didn't. And my ransom was only $300. And you may say, well, I've seen these ransoms in the news for millions and millions of dollars. Mine was $300 per machine, and I wasn't targeting businesses. I wanted to target people. Why would I do that? Well, $300 is a parking ticket, right? It's annoying. But it's not going to kill you. You're going to pay it because you want your family pictures back. You want those pictures of your kids or the videos or other things you have on your thing. So this is what's called parking ticket ransomware, right? This is a nuisance. But it would work in a business just the same because I can target businesses. So my ROI over the course of 90 days, $3,000 a day, $90,000 a month. That's what I turned $6,000 American into, was a ransomware campaign that would return that kind of investment. So think about that. When I said, has anybody went in on that 1,400% return, you guys aren't the only ones who think that. There's an entire globe full of people who are making $200 a month, working just as hard as we are, doing just the same jobs as we are, who look at that return on investment and think, I went in on that. Even if I get one ransom hit. Anybody in here read Brian Krebs? Yeah. So did you see his thing today when he talked about the new phishing tactic where they're trying to cut in employees to launch ransomware? If you haven't, go look. Krebs wrote a whole article about it today. And one of the tactics for phishing now is instead of just phishing you with an email and trying to get your employees, I'm actually going to look for disgruntled workers and tell them, I will give you a percentage of the ransom if you launch that ransomware inside. Like the war is accelerating because it's about money. So we really have to change the paradigm in order to stop ransomware. We have to think differently. This is one of my favorite quotes in the world. I don't know if you guys know who Jaron Lanier is. He's one of my heroes. Someday I want to grow up to be crazy Jaron Lanier. But I really like the idea that we can't make smarter criminals. Because I think what we've learned about ransomware is that we didn't make better software. Any of you who really do breakdowns or really pay attention to ransomware, many of the tools are the same old tools, same old exploits, same old vulnerabilities that they are exploiting. But what they've learned is new tactics. How to manipulate people better. They've learned how to get into phishing better, how to get into people's minds better. That's what they're learning, social engineering at a level that they never had before. Now they're growing. So we've started to make smarter criminals, even though they're using the same old tools. I think some of this came about because of what I call the gap. When we look at what security tools do today, I have perimeter security. I have never actually complete, NAC, security. And then I have endpoint security, all of which is pretty good. If I have a good NAC setup, it's pretty good. If I have a great EDR, it's pretty good. But is anybody here who uses a great EDR, CrowdStrike? I'm not picking on anybody, by the way. A great EDR, do you have it on every endpoint? Anybody? No, because you can't afford it, right? Not because you don't want to. I'd like to put it on every endpoint, but I can't afford it. It's too expensive. So I leave a few off. Or if you're a hospital, I can't put it on an MRI machine. Or if I'm in OT, I can't put it on an HMI. Now suddenly, half of everything I have doesn't have an endpoint on it. Well, now what do I do with that? Well, we'll NAC it, right? Anybody got a NAC completely implemented? No, nobody does, because it's never actually complete. And the perimeter firewalls, we've got great ones. I worked for Palo Alto. I worked for an amazing firewall company. But the ransomware is moving laterally. In fact, in our Rise of the Machines report, we observed that the amount of malicious traffic is almost 13x internal versus external. That's because it takes one time to get in. Once I'm in, I start moving around. One email, one bad sender, and then I'm doomed. This really comes about, I think this thing goes to sleep. Wake up. Woo. Oh, that's all right. There we go. From the thing we call the 5 Vs. So most companies have 7 to 9 assets per employee. Those assets are not duplicated, meaning you have a laptop, you have a phone, you may have another device, but you don't have 2 laptops, you don't have 2 phones. So you have this huge diversity of different kinds of devices that are large numbers per employee. And when I say 7 to 9, I don't mean they have 7 to 9 IPs themselves. I mean, if you count the amount of assets in your enterprise, there are 7 to 9 per employee. That's switches and routers and firewalls and everything, right? They move a lot. Some of them come and go from the network. They take them home. Some of them just move. You're running down the hall with a crash cart in a hospital, and it's changing IP addresses. How do your security controls keep up with that? It's very hard, right? They weren't designed for a highly mobile, high-velocity environment. Most of them are very vulnerable. We found that almost in our entire survey of all of our customers and of all the traffic flows we found, that the average number of vulnerabilities open on a device was 7. That's average. That's not even the Windows 7 machines that I didn't get rid of, right? Like, it's terrible. And also, people usually have many more things than they thought. This problem is really difficult. It's compounded by what I call the circle of risk. You guys know the Kevin Bacon theory of like everybody's 6 degrees connected to Kevin Bacon? Well, apply this to computer networking and think about this. I may have, and I use the hospital here, by the way, for anybody who's in the hospital. At the core, I have all these medical devices, and they're locked down, right, in this VLAN. And I'm super sure they're secure. And they talk to a nurse's workstation at the next hop because the nurses have to monitor what's going on with patients and everything else. But those nurses surf the internet from their workstation. They're on TikTok and Facebook and whatever. So do you think those devices at the core that the nurse's workstation can talk to the internet? They sure do, through 1 degree of separation. So what you have to think about is, what can this device talk to, and what does it talk to, and what does it talk to? This is what lateral movement looks like. Because I don't have to exploit the first device I hit. I might just exploit that device, hop off of it, move to the next one, hop off of it, move to the next one. That's how networking works, right? We designed it to talk to each other, to make it easy to talk to each other. So what I have to think of when I think of a circle of risk is I have to think about how risky are the devices it talks to. That must be part of a risk calculation for the enterprise. This is the other problem we have. You know what the average time from detection to response is in an enterprise? According to Gartner, it's 86 days. 86 days from first alert to doing something about it. 86 days is death, right? That's us being fired is what it really comes down to, is 86 days is death. I need to move from detection to response as fast as possible. I don't have time when I detect that first spike of infection. I don't have time to figure out what is this thing that generated an alert. Think about how many security tools, and I'm going to bash myself here and every other vendor, that give you an IP address, talk to an IP address on a port, and did a bad thing. That's your alert. What am I supposed to do with that? I have to go figure out what that was. What if that IP address changed? What if it's something different today? But I just realized, holy moly, Conti is moving through my enterprise. Well, I don't have time to figure this out. So I got to know what it is first. And then I got to know, where is it? And I mean both physically, and I also need to know, where is it in the network? Like which VLAN, which switch port, like all of that kind of stuff. Well, now I got to go log into a bunch of switches and routers and other things and figure all that out. And then can I do something about this? Is this MRI machine, for example, speaking from an actual customer case here, is this MRI machine in service right now? I can't just boot it off the network. I'll disconnect it from the PAC system. If I'm in a factory, is this thing slicing pepperonis right now? Like, I have to know, can I act upon this device? Now, who do I call to find that out? I don't know, right? I'm in the middle of watching this ransomware spread through my network, and my socks lighting up like a Christmas tree, right? This is when panic is set in. And then lastly, I have to know, what could I even do about it? Can I mitigate it? Can I do something to the switch? All of this stuff I have to figure out while I'm watching my job and my career go down the drain as the clock's turning, right? We have to stop all of that. We have to have tools that allow us to answer these questions in real time, immediately, so that I can get to that last stage of what can I do about it as fast as possible. We can do all the tabletop exercises people want. We can do all those things, and I encourage you to. Absolutely practice, right? Absolutely. But everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. That's Mike Tyson, by the way. Quote. I like quotes. And so that's what's going to happen, is you're going to panic when it happens. So don't only have a plan, have a real plan. Have a real way to understand, how am I going to move through these steps to get to mitigation at the end. You need to unify all of those security tools. If when you get to the end, I have to go to my EDR console, I have to log into my firewall, I have to log into my NAC, what do? You're adding time again, right? We're back to time, and I don't have it. I'm going to fat finger that command on my deny, and suddenly I brought down the enterprise. I'm going to fat finger my command on the NAC system, and then I'm really hosed, right? Like, things are bad. So you want systems that can bring all of these pieces together, from your enterprise asset manager that helps you understand who's responsible for this and who to call, all the way through your security stack, back to your SIM and SOAR and the SOC, so that we can automate the process. If that's the SOAR automating it, good for you, do that. That's the right way to do it. If it's not, you need other tools that can help you unify these things. Bring them together so that you can get through your steps quickly, get to the endpoint of mitigation, and push the button. Go. No more waiting. So, in closing, we have a ransom-aware, this is my only product slide, they made me do one, so sorry. We have a ransom-aware report. In 14 days, I can tell you how much lateral movement is happening in your enterprise. I can tell you what is doing it, where it is. All of those questions can be answered for you in a report in 14 days from us. And if anybody wants to come to the table and talk to us afterwards, love to talk to you more. And thank you for your time today.